Lucas, I would like to have some record of this meeting.
Yeah, please do. So just to give you an idea where we are, here you have a map of Australia, and I'm in Wollongong, which is about 1 hour south of Sydney. And Alan is in a place called Gold Coast, which is at the southern end of Queensland. So to travel from my house to Alan's house, you get on an aeroplane, maybe an hour and a half, I think, something like that on an aeroplane. And the climate up here is beginning to be more tropical, and here is more subtropical or temperate climate. And in Australia, the majority of the population live along the coast rather than on the interior because of the climate and the soil. So that just gives you an idea about where we are in this gigantic country that we are. And the land that I'm on is in Wollongong, is the traditional land of the Dharawal people and the Wadi Wadi people, who are the traditional owners, the Aboriginal people of the land where I come from. So what I want to talk to you about today is, because I'm an artist, I want to make a connection between the work that artists do and the work that other people do in, for example, farmers or scientists or inventors like Alan, designers like Alan. So about 10 years ago, I did a project about Alan's father, P.A. Yeomans, and that's how we met. That's how Alan and I met, because when I was working on this project, myself and Ian Millis, who I was collaborating with, we got in touch with Alan to talk about his father and also to exhibit one of the keyline plows in the museum. And I'll show you a picture of that later. But this P.A. Yeomans is the inventor of the keyline design system for landscape. And Alan worked with P.A. Yeomans on inventing this system. And P.A., the father, wrote a lot of books. And this is one of his books, famous book called The Challenge of Landscape, where the keyline design system is detailed in this book. And this quote, as an artist, obviously I was really interested in this quote because P.A. Yeomans makes a claim about the difference between art and farming. So while an artist can create a representation of a landscape, the farmer can actually make the landscape. So not just a picture of the landscape, but you actually make the landscape itself. So the farmer has this possibility of transforming and changing the world in a way that goes beyond what the artist can do. And this is one of the things that made me start thinking about redefining what art could be or what an artist could be. Here you see one of the landscapes that P.A. Yeomans and Alan Yeomans were involved in redesigning and transforming in around the 1950s, a place called Yobani on the outskirts of Sydney. And you can see here, the landscape was previously a degraded farmland. And one of the troubles with Australia is that European systems of farming were brought to a place where they were not appropriate. And so there was a massive amount of erosion and soil loss, and the drought affected the land very badly. So a new system was required to recharge moisture and hydrate the soil and build the soil. And P.A. Yeomans and Alan Yeomans were involved in creating this system, which they called Keyline. And you can see what it looks like here. So topography is used to design the landscape, where large dams store water and circulate water through the landscape so that a kind of gravity-fed system of irrigation and hydration can help build the soil. So this was a revolutionary system, and one of the big influences that it has had is on what we now call regenerative agriculture, which is a broad church incorporating keyline design and other things. And also it's had a big influence on the permaculture movement. And any permaculture design course, there's always going to be a week that focuses on landscape hydration and the keyline system. So this is just to say that the man that I've been working with, Alan Yeomans, who's going to be talking next, comes from Australian farming innovation royalty. So there is a a sort of legacy that goes back 70 years of innovation in how to build soil in the Australian landscape. And in 1950, we weren't talking about climate change, but we were talking about erosion and the importance of soil in feeding people in this country. This is something that is an extra innovation that Alan Yeomans now is involved in to this day in selling and designing and constantly innovating the Yeomans keyline plough. So it's a particular kind of plough that's used in conjunction with the keyline design system in order to help moisture and air infiltrate into the soil without disturbing the soil and churning it and turning it over and breaking up the subsoil ecosystem. And of course, all of these things that I'm talking about, I know only a tiny bit of the iceberg. Alan can tell you more about them later on. One of the things that when I met Alan, I was in 2013, I think was when I first met Alan. And by then, obviously, he was still talking about soil, but he was beginning his work with the Yeomans carbon still. And he told me about how he'd been thinking about this for a long time, ever since, in fact, 1990, when he went to America to participate in this very important conference about the greenhouse effect. And Alan was at this conference, proposed the idea that agriculture could be used as a method for resolving carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Agriculture, when done correctly, can draw down carbon dioxide and store it in the soil. And there's a paper here, which is we've republished on our bakingearth.net website, where you can see Alan's position on this from the year 1990. And of course, he's developed that much, much further in his writings and his innovation and inventions in more recent years. And we'll talk about that a bit later on. Okay, so here I am, I'm an artist. I'm impressed by the developments of the Yeomans family, and I'm putting forward a redefinition of what art can be. So in the art world, we normally think an artist is a person who makes paintings or sculpture or has exhibitions in galleries and that kind of thing. And I'm putting forward a redefinition of art, which says an artist is someone who performs cultural innovation. So, and this can happen in any field, not just art. So it's a broader definition of what an artist is, and I would argue a more significant definition of what an artist is. And so you can see it's not surprising that I would identify the work of P.A. Yeomans and Alan Yeomans as the work of artists under this expanded definition. And that's which makes sense as well as to why I would then include their work in museum exhibitions of art. Just to give you a sense, this might connect, Augusto, with the work you're doing in Albarella. This is a work by a person called Ian Millis, another artist that I work with, called Welcome to Candos. And this is a poster from 2013. And Candos is a very small town, about 1,000 people. And the whole purpose of the town was to create cement about 100 years ago. It's a cement factory town. And then in 2010, the cement factory shut. So the whole reason for the town to exist finished. There was no reason anymore for people to live there. And Ian Millis created this project called Welcome to Candos, where he created a fake tourist poster, a fake poster about all the amazing things in Candos in the year 2113. So we go forward 100 years and Candos has the world's largest solar thermal plant, or the Southern Hemisphere's largest solar thermal plant. It has, its cement works have been turned into a kind of an underwater diving center so that you can see coral, recreated coral ecosystems, and the botanical gardens has been set up at the cement works. And there has been this thing called the Candos University and its School of Cultural Innovation. So this place of post-industrial decline is reinvented as a place of innovation. And this poster is entirely fake. And the people who, when this poster was put up in the town, all of the people who lived there were really surprised. They were like, you mean to say we've got these things in this town? That's amazing. And so the poster became a kind of catalyst for making change. And a group of us got together and we created the Kandos University School of Cultural Adaptation. And now that group has about 25 members, and we're doing lots of projects to do with post-industrial reinvention in this region outside. It's about 4 hours drive from Sydney. So it's just to give you an example of how the imaginative work of an artist can catalyze change in a positive way, in a way that's also very light. Like all of these pictures are fake pictures that are taken off the internet. They're not real at all, but they still catalyze change in the direction that we wanted it to be. Okay. This is just, I guess, a kind of a self-portrait of my method as an artist. I'm an artist. I'm also an academic and a researcher, and I'm an activist. I want to make change in the world. I want to make artworks. So I use museum exhibitions as a way of interacting with the public. And I also want to research things and understand the complexity of things. And this method of making art, we call socially engaged art. So it looks very different from the standard thing you might be used to. In other words, paintings or sculptures and that kind of thing. And it involves all of these kinds of things here. This is the kind of thing that I do as an artist. I have meetings with people. We collaborate with other disciplines. We make publications, do performances, have exhibitions, make blogs and internet websites. And do collaborations with people like Alan. So that's just to give you an idea of the kind of work that I do as an artist. I mentioned before how the situation where I met Alan Yeomans, this was that situation. This is at the Art Gallery of New South Wales, where Ian Millis, another artist and who made the poster, and myself, we put on an exhibition about the work of P.A. Yeomans. It was called the Yeomans Project. So you can see here, this is a kind of diagram or map of that same piece of land that I showed you an aerial photograph of before, Yobani. Here you have archival cases with P.A. Yeomans's writings. And over here you have one of the keyline plows that Alan kindly lent us for the exhibition. There you see the plow. So the plow is normally thought of as an implement for working in the landscape and transforming the soil. And here we pay homage to the plow as an artwork by placing it in the museum. So this is all part of our argument to reframe the work of farmers and innovators and scientists as art. Here's some of the other things that we do as socially engaged artists from the 1950s through to the 70s and 80s. P.A. Yeomans, and I'm sure Alan was involved in many of these field days where people were taken to farms to experience the keyline system. So we, as part of our project, we did a kind of reenactment of that kind of thing where we would take people on a bus out to a farm. Here you see in the red, there's a farmer who's adopted the keyline system for regenerating his farm. So people have a direct experience in the field to learn about these kind of farming innovations. So this part of the kind of work that I do as an artist, it's a kind of public education role in some ways. All right, so that's to talk about briefly talk about my work with on P.A. Yeomans. In between that project and my work with Alan Yeomans, I did a project about sugarcane farming in the Great Barrier Reef. And this is the project that had most depth and time that I've expended on working with farmers. So the problem situation that I was dealing with here, and it may interest you, Augusto, and your collaborators in working on in Albarella, because it's a very coastal environment. The problem situation here is that the Great Barrier Reef is along here, right alongside all of this farmland where they grow sugarcane. And the Great Barrier Reef is a very vulnerable and delicate ecosystem. And the sugarcane farming areas are areas where a lot of pesticides and fertilizers are used to grow a monoculture crop. So there's a lot of runoff that happens from the sugarcane farms into the Great Barrier Reef, which causes water pollution, basically. This is a picture of a fairly typical summer rainfall event where you can see the water lands on the crop, goes into these kind of gullies, down into the creeks and rivers and out into the sea. And that water quality problem makes it a lot harder for the coral in the Great Barrier Reef to recover and be resilient to bleaching events. There's a crown of thorns starfish, whose reproduction is stimulated by the nitrogen from the fertilizers from the sugarcane farm. So this is the problem situation that I was going into, and some farmers invited me and my collaborator, Kim Williams, to go up and work with them on this. There's Kim in the purple shirt there, and there we are talking with some of the farmers in the town of Mackay. And these farmers are from a group called the Central Queensland Soil Health Systems. So they are innovators in trying to find ways to improve sugarcane farming in order to reduce this problem of the nitrogen running out into the Great Barrier Reef. And what we're standing in there is a sugarcane crop which has multiple different species grown within it. The problem with sugarcane usually is that it's grown as a monoculture, so it requires a lot more chemicals. But when you grow it as a polyculture, like in this situation, it requires a lot less and it helps to build the soil. This is an aerial photograph taken from a drone of an event that we organized with the farmers called Sunset Symphony in the Sunflowers. So you have a sugarcane crop, and in this case, you can see those little yellow things in there. Those are sunflowers. So this is a multi-species crop with sugarcane and sunflowers, which has had legumes growing in it as well. And we carved an amphitheater out of the sugarcane crop and hosted an event where there was a symphony orchestra that played there, and then the people ate beautiful food and drinks, and the farmers got to talk to the public about their innovative sugarcane farming techniques. The next step was we took the same method and the same size piece of land, but we did it at the Botanic Gardens in the town of Mackay. So we created a crop, a circular crop, you can see here, of multi-species sugarcane in the town, so people could access it and learn from it and get involved with the planting and the harvesting. So here you see legumes that the community has helped to plant in the circular site. And there's the sugarcane and sunflowers seen from the air as they grow up. At the same time, we were doing scientific tests with a local scientific group about the soil improvement, because from the farmer's point of view, the whole point of doing this kind of thing is to improve the soil so that it retains moisture better and has less fertilizer runoff into the Great Barrier Reef. So this group here, Catchment Solutions, did a scientific study on the soil and found that there was a marked reduction in the loss of nutrient and pesticides and the ability of the soil to hold water for longer. So it built soil structure was improved as a result of these multi-species growing systems. And they give us an opportunity, especially when you're working with a species like sunflowers, to have these celebration events where the community can come along and have a good time, and at the same time learn about the innovations of these farmers and artists. And here at the same time is an exhibition in the local gallery where the progress of the crops is exhibited, and local politicians are invited to come along, where we have a chance to talk to them about the innovations of the farmers in order to try and get more support from politicians about the better ways of doing things. And here the politicians are taken out to the Botanic Gardens to feel and see the soil for themselves. Here's George Christensen one of the politicians in that local area, feeling the quality of the soil that was built through the course of the project. So if we reframe the work of farmers like Alan McLean as artists, then this kind of soil here, which you're holding in their hands, that is a material of art. Okay, so the next project that we did after this brings Alan in again, because not only does this process build soil in order to help it hold water, but that exact same process draws carbon down from the atmosphere and helps it to lock it into the soil. So the time was right, this was about 2019, to then return from working with sugarcane farmers to start working again with the yeoman's family, in this case, Alan. And by now, Alan's machine was ready to go. So I proposed that we exhibit the yeoman's carbon steel in the Monash University Museum of Art as a fully working model. So you can see here, there's this beautiful silver pipe that comes up and out, and that's where the emissions from the yeoman's carbon steel go. So that, because what we're in here is an air-conditioned art museum, so they have to be very careful about the atmosphere here. It's not a shed or a workshop like what Alan has in the Gold Coast. So the idea of this exhibition was that it was a kind of a working laboratory where soil samples would be tested in front of the public so that they could see the process of it working and learn about soil carbon sequestration. And also so that Alan had a chance to interact with the public and students and other researchers and scientists. Here's a few examples of before and after. So you can see here the beautiful, rich soil from the sugarcane site, and then the after photo here. And I'll let Alan talk about what happens between the before and the after. But in order to generate a soil carbon reading or measurement, the soil is baked. And you can see here that the beautiful, rich humus turns into carbon dioxide, and what we're left with is the rock content of the soil. One of the things that Alan did, which I think was most interesting and ingenious, was to involve his granddaughter, Rhiannon Sutton Yeomans, who was a design student in Melbourne, and to teach her how to use the yeoman's carbon steel in front of the public. Now, this was really clever, because one of the things that Alan is trying to get people to understand is that his machine is accessible to ordinary people. You don't have to be a trained scientist in order to use it. So in order to make that point, he taught his granddaughter, who came into the exhibition every week during the show, to learn from her granddad how to do it. Granddad AJ, or Grandpa AJ, I think she called you, Alan. And here's Alan interacting with, these are elite science students from the university, from Monash University, in their Global Challenges program. And this is a science program which tries to get science students to understand that they have to go beyond the laboratory and beyond their disciplines in order to grapple with big problems in the world. And that means being involved with science communication and collaboration beyond disciplines. So it was an excellent opportunity for them to learn about soil carbon sequestration and all of the problems involved with it, because it's not just a technical problem, it's also a social problem, because we need to change legislation in order to allow farmers to access the systems for being paid to draw down soil carbon dioxide into their soil. So in a second, I'll pass over to Alan. Just a final picture here to show one of the other things that we did when we had that museum was we did another field trip out to a farm to demonstrate the soil sampling techniques. So it's just multiple different opportunities for public education around soil carbon sequestration, at the same time as in a way, running a campaign to try and make it possible for farmers to be paid to do this service to the ecosystem. So I'll pause there, and I'll stop sharing my screen,